What's good with y'all? So this video is going to be the first video of a series about how I survived and got a 5 on my AP classes, because you guys saw my AP score reaction video and were like, I need some tips. So here it is. We're going to start off with AP Human Geography today. Now I know a lot of other YouTubers like to recommend these very vague tips, if you will, but I'm here today to give you some really hard and fast tips that you can start implementing as soon as the school year starts. And so I know this is a very freshman predominant class, so I really recommend if you're a freshman to just pay attention to all of these study tips and the format of the class that I'm going to be discussing today, because it will be applicable to the rest of the AP classes. Some of the tips will be to the rest of the AP classes that you'll take down the line. So yeah, let's get started. So despite the name AP Human Geography, the class actually has very little to do with geography on its own, and it's more so analyzing other topics with geography in mind. So topics like religion, politics, culture, etc. So I just wanted to briefly cover the format of the class and what's covered on the exam, so you guys get a better feel for what this is. Alright, so first of all, you guys can actually find this website by just searching up AP Human Geography Class College Board Online. And so this just gives you all the details you need to know about your course. So the first unit was all about thinking geographically. So this is a pretty easy unit, and it's just an introduction to the maps and how we collect data as geographers. Second unit also pretty straightforward, and it's all just about population. So you guys talk about population theory, population pyramids, etc. And then third unit was, in my opinion, the hardest. This was all about cultural patterns as well as religion. So you dive into culture and religion, how that spread, how that impacts societies in a geographical perspective. And then you guys move on to political patterns and processes. This is pretty much, if you take an AP World History, this is AP World History in one unit almost. Not as intensive, but it's a brief introduction to world history, sort of, because you're just diving into the politics and the history of regions. And the next thing you talk about is agriculture. Again, I think this was a pretty difficult unit just because a lot of HGAP is common sense, but Unit 5 isn't, because a lot of us don't live near agricultural or rural areas. If you do, good for you, but personally I don't. And then Unit 6 was about cities and urban land use. This was, again, a little bit of a tough unit, but it was a lot of common sense in a way. It's all about globalization, how technology has impacted people, cities, city infrastructure, etc. And the final unit is industrial and economic development. This is actually very similar to Unit 6 in my opinion. It was very hard to tell the difference between the two, and so this is all just about the Industrial Revolution and kind of that post 1880s era, after the Industrial Revolution, and how that growth and change in population and and urban development has affected society. So that's pretty much the course. So let's dive back into the rest of my tips. Okay, now I know a lot of people are like, should I get the Barron's book to review? Should I get the Princeton Review book to review? Etc., etc. People like to use books to study. I get it. But what I recommend is actually to purchase the AMSCO. So this bad boy right here. This is the 2020 edition. Obviously, we're at 2023 now. But I highly recommend this book, because if you're anything like me, you want to get an A in the class without having to put in the work of getting an A in the class. In other words, you want to be lazy, enjoy your life, but still get an A. And so the reason I love this book so much is, if you actually look at it, it's quite small compared to your traditional textbook. And so it kind of condenses the content in a much better way than your traditional textbook would do. And so if you're if you're up late studying for your test, you procrastinated, you're able to cover the entire unit test's worth of content in just an hour or two. It's a quick read, maybe 10 to 30 pages depending on the unit. And speaking of unit tests, that brings me to my second tip. And so for freshmen, pretty much most of the AP classes you'll ever take in high school, you'll find this one guru online, someone that knows so much about it. And so this is definitely the case with AP Human Geography, HGAP, and that guy's name is Mr.Sinn. This guy is your absolute savior when it comes to procrastination. So what he does is he posts basically each lesson for the unit for every single unit of the entire year. And so each of those videos are 5 minutes long. There's probably 10 lessons in each unit. So you can literally get through the entire unit worth of content pretty quickly if you really need to. So what I recommend doing is, the day before your test, just watch those videos. It's either a quick review, right? If you have already studied prior, or if you haven't studied prior, I recommend watching those videos first because it'll give you a very not necessarily brief, but a little bit more in depth of an understanding of what the content is, and then you can dive into the AMSCO or whatever notes that your teacher provided you to study. Okay, now the third tip I have for y'all is perhaps the most interesting one and perhaps the most helpful one, and that is to do practice questions. I know how simple that sounds, but the thing is, like, entering, if this is your first AP class, entering an AP class can be a little bit difficult to manage the time. And so what a lot of people end up doing is, especially when they're up late night studying and they procrastinated and gotten to that point, they end up just like learning the material and then like that's it. They never practice it. But the problem is with HGAP, it's not the content that's difficult. It's actually the way they word the questions and how they make it confusing. You'll often be battling between two answers on the test. And so you essentially don't know what you don't know until you practice. You know what I'm saying? And so I recommend, the night before the test, or hopefully 2 to 3 days before the test, if you're actually spreading out your study sessions, I recommend that you go to Google, literally just search up like AP Human Geography Unit 1 practice questions. And you'll find like a Quizlet online or something like that with like 10 to 20 questions on it to practice. Right, I highly recommend practicing that. There's also practice questions in the AMSCO as well. Definitely do all those practice questions that you can to solidify your understanding of the content. And so the final tip I have as far as the actual class goes is to just be okay with not getting 100, especially like freshmen that are coming from middle school. Like that's kind of how I felt walking into the class, thinking like, okay, I can like just study and get 100. But like that's not necessarily the case unless your class has some kind of crazy curve or boost period. I don't know. But, like I said, it's a subjective class. I mean, like a lot of the questions can be very ambiguous and it's hard to tell between two different answer choices. So just be okay with it. Don't let it, knock you out of your study, your grind, whatever it might be. So yeah, don't let that ruin your mental health. Now, the first tip I have for y'all as far as the AP exam preparation part of this goes is to purchase the Ethel Woods book, which is this right here. Now, this book actually hasn't been updated in quite a few years actually, but thankfully, the content of this class hasn't changed either, so it's actually perfectly fine. And that actually makes the cost a bit cheaper. Most of the books are used, like I said, because they're getting kind of old. But that's okay. I think it was a really helpful book for me because I was able to read through the AMSCO studying for every single unit test during the year. And then by the time I got to the end of the year, I was like, I need to review something to, maintain the content that I already have in my brain. And so by getting this Ethel Woods book, which is recommended to our people at our school who are taking the class, it's very similar to the AMSCO in that it's very brief. It's very concise, it's to the point, and that's much better than reading through a traditional textbook that's like, 400, 300 pages long. Like, that's a lot to read through, especially if you're lazy like me. And so having to get this, getting this as like a quick read was really helpful. Now, the next tip I have for you for AP exam prep is to, again, watch Mr. Sinn's videos. And specifically what I want you to watch is his unit review videos. So he'll post a unit review video about, every single unit for that year. And they're only like, again, 15, 20 minutes long. You watch it, boom, done in like 3 hours. I think this is a great way to, there's really two things you can do. You can start off your studying for the AP exam by doing this. It gets you a good brief introduction to the topics you want to study. Or you could watch it the day before the exam and it'll give you a nice little crash course right before. I did the latter of the two. Obviously it helped me, and so I'd recommend it to you guys as well. Now, the final AP exam tip I have for y'all is to practice the FRQ timing. For me personally, I think a lot of others at our school, the FRQ timing was very hard to get adjusted to, especially as a freshman, because you guys come from middle school and like there aren't very like that many stringent times on how long you can spend writing for English or history or whatever the class is. And so that was something to get adjusted to. And so what I recommend doing is just go online, search up, you can actually go to the College Board website and see previous test questions just for the FRQ portion. So that's very helpful because obviously College Board is the one making your test. So go on there, do the practice questions, and that helps you get adjusted to the timing. You can know all the content in the world, but if you don't get your thoughts on that paper in under 75 minutes, you're done. Like, you're not getting the points, right? You're not probably getting the grade you want on that exam. And so I definitely recommend doing that. So like specifically in our year of testing, typically what College Board does is they'll make one set of questions harder than the other. So if you get that harder set, you might be a little bit more pressed on time. And it's okay though, because they will like, you have to score less points on the harder one to get the same grade on the easy one. So it's balanced. But like for me personally, I sat there on that first FRQ, 25 minutes each for 3 FRQs, right? And I spent I think 35 minutes on that first FRQ, and I opened the second FRQ, and then I finished that, went to the third FRQ, and I didn't have time for like the last 2 questions. And that could have cost me my 5, but thankfully I had done enough studying to get me there, but just get me to that 5. But yeah, I mean, that just goes to show the importance of practicing that FRQ timing. Alright, I appreciate you all sticking around till the end of this video. So that was how to survive in 5 on HGAP, AP Human Geography. So if you like this video, I'd really appreciate it if you all could hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned for more videos. And make sure you comment below for any other AP classes you want me to cover. See you in the next one.